fame, fortune, and millions of followers, these celebrities once ruled the world. Their names were on billboards, their faces on magazine covers, and their lifestyles envied by millions. But in 2025, the spotlight has shifted, and not in the way they imagined. From music legends and reality stars to influencers and Hollywood actors, these public figures are now living a completely different reality, locked behind bars. No more red carpets, no more flashing cameras, just cold prison walls and headlines filled with scandal. Some are facing decades for serious crimes, fraud, sexual assault, even attempted murder. Others shocked fans by showing a darker side no one saw coming. What's even more surprising? These weren't nobodies, they were household names. People trusted them, idolized them, and in some cases even defended them. But the truth eventually surfaced. And when it did, it was too big to ignore. From explosive trials to public breakdowns, today we're counting down 10 of the most famous celebrities who are currently rotting in jail, and the shocking, controversial reasons that put them there. If you're into real-life drama, scandal, and the hidden fallouts of fame, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications because this is just the beginning. Let's talk about a name that once held unmatched power in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein. For decades, this man wasn't just a producer, he was the industry. If you were an actor, director, or writer, having Harvey's name behind your film could be the golden ticket to an Oscar. He co-founded Miramax and later the Weinstein Company. And through those studios, he helped launch and elevate films like Pulp Fiction, Shakespeare in Love, The English Patient, Good Will Hunting, The King's Speech. The list is insane. His films racked up over 80 Academy Awards. To say he was a Hollywood kingmaker would be an understatement. But while he built an empire on the surface, there was a much darker story unfolding behind closed doors, one that eventually exploded and sparked a global movement. In 2017, the world came to a halt when dozens of women came forward accusing Harvey Weinstein of sexual harassment, assault, and rape. These weren't isolated incidents. These were allegations dating back decades, involving actresses, assistants, models, journalists, women from all corners of the industry. What made this moment even more explosive was the scale and similarity of the stories. Women described a pattern: private meetings, forced massages, threats, manipulation, career sabotage. Some said he demanded sexual favors in exchange for roles. Others claimed he used his power and intimidation to silence victims. This wave of accusations didn't just bring down one man, it helped ignite the global #MeToo movement. People around the world began speaking up about abuse and power dynamics in workplaces. Harvey Weinstein had become the face of an industry-wide reckoning. Now, legally speaking, it all led to two major criminal cases, one in New York and the other in California. Let's start with New York. In 2020, Harvey was convicted of rape and criminal sexual acts involving two women. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison. At the time, he was already in poor health, using a walker, and many thought he might not survive the full term. But that wasn't the end of it. In 2022, California launched its own case. This time, the charges involved four women who accused him of assault in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills between 2004 and 2013. The trial lasted weeks, and in December 2022, Weinstein was found guilty again, this time for rape and sexual assault of a woman who had testified anonymously. In February 2023, he was sentenced to 16 more years in California. Let that sink in. 23 years from New York, plus 16 years from California, back to back. That's 39 years total for a man who is already in his 70s. So where is he now? As of now, Harvey Weinstein is serving time in California at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. This came after being transferred from New York's Wendy Correctional Facility, where he was initially held after his first sentencing. He's no longer just awaiting trial or on bail. He is a convicted felon behind bars, serving a long sentence. And even though Weinstein's team has appealed his New York conviction, which led to a partial retrial being granted in 2024, the California sentence still stands. That means even if one conviction gets overturned, he's not walking free anytime soon. The whole story of Harvey Weinstein is a chilling reminder of how far unchecked power can go. Harvey Weinstein went from Hollywood royalty to inmate, from the Oscars to isolation. And while he's no longer in the headlines every day, his case remains one of the most important in the history of celebrity justice. You've likely heard the name Andrew Tate over and over. He's one of the internet's most polarizing figures. He first gained attention as a kickboxing world champion, collecting multiple international titles and building a reputation as a fierce competitor. From the ring, he leapt into the public eye again when he appeared briefly on Big Brother UK. but it was his pivot into the world of online influence that transformed him into a global headline-making personality. With a slick persona, luxury cars, high-end fashion, and a magnetizing message of ultra-masculinity, Tate carved out a huge following. His content, talking about financial freedom, male empowerment, and an unapologetic, often controversial worldview, exploded across platforms. People were either drawn to his no-nonsense attitude or repulsed by the misogynistic overtones. He built a cult-like community with hundreds of thousands of followers, selling courses and coaching packages on how to live and think like a top G. His reach and influence grew fast and wide, amplified by his use of provocative social media challenges, videos, and podcasts. But that meteoric rise didn't shield him from legal trouble. In December 2022, Romanian authorities arrested Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan on serious charges that stunned the world: human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized criminal group to exploit women. Prosecutors alleged the brothers manipulated women into coming to Romania under false pretenses, promising relationships and luxury, only to force them into webcam pornography work. The accusations are severe and shocking. Authorities say the operation extended for years, with multiple victims involved. Andrew and Tristan Tate were initially held in Romanian jail for months while the investigation continued. Later, their status was downgraded to house arrest. But not long after, Andrew was allowed to leave Romania entirely, heading to the US in early 2025 after legal restrictions were lifted. But his troubles didn't end at Romania's borders. In May 2025, UK prosecutors announced new charges against the Tate brothers, including allegations of human trafficking, rape, and actual bodily harm. Accusations that date back all the way to 2013. The UK indictment is serious, though no trial date has been set yet. Meanwhile, Romanian authorities are pressing ahead with their own case, and the US is reportedly monitoring the situation closely. So where does that leave Andrew Tate right now? Unlike traditional jail, he's not currently locked up behind bars in a physical prison cell, but he isn't free either. He's navigating a complex web of legal restrictions on both sides of the Atlantic. Multiple investigations are ongoing, with serious charges hanging over his head in at least 3 countries. Each new development adds pressure on his empire. The one built on flash, and controversy. Nothing's been hidden. Videos show him flaunting wealth, talking about how the rules don't apply to him. And now, those same actions are why he's under such intense scrutiny. His followers still rally around him, but there are growing cracks in his armor. Some former allies are distancing themselves, some platforms have banned or demonetized him, and mainstream brands have steered clear. At the heart of this saga is a clear truth. Andrew Tate's rise reflected a cultural moment: online bravado, controversial charisma, and big promises. But his legal battles reveal a far darker follow-through. They hint at abuse, manipulation, and allegations that could land him in prison for many years, if courts in Romania, the UK, or the US find him guilty. So there you have it. Andrew Tate, a man who rose from combat sports fame to online cult leader, notorious for his wealth, words, and now the worst kind of accusations. He isn't currently serving time behind bars, but he's locked in legal battles that could determine the rest of his life. This story isn't over. It's just getting messier. In May 2025, the UK formally charged both brothers with multiple serious offenses, including rape, human trafficking, and assault, in connection with offenses dating back to 2013. So while he isn't currently sitting in a prison cell, Andrew Tate is still deeply entangled in international legal battles that could land him behind bars for years. He may not be in jail at this exact moment, but he's far from free, and his empire is hanging by a thread. R. Kelly, you know his music. You've heard his voice. R. Kelly wasn't just famous, he was a global sensation. The man behind I Believe I Can Fly, Ignition remix, and dozens of R&B anthems ruled the charts for decades. With over 75 million records sold and multiple Grammy Awards, he was one of the biggest names in the industry. Someone whose talent was undeniable. But behind all that fame was a dark, disturbing truth. For years, allegations followed him: abuse, manipulation, and the exploitation of young girls. And for a long time, he managed to escape the consequences. That all changed in 2021, R. Kelly was found guilty in New York on serious charges including racketeering and sex trafficking involving underage victims. He was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. A year later, another trial in Chicago convicted him again, this time for producing child pornography and enticing a minor, adding another 20 years to his sentence, most of which runs alongside the first. As of 2025, he's locked up in Federal Correctional Institution Butner Medium I in North Carolina. He's tried to appeal, even requested house arrest, but the court shut it down. If nothing changes, he won't walk free until he's nearly 80 years old. From music legend to convicted predator, R. Kelly's fall is one of the most dramatic and disturbing in entertainment history. You've absolutely heard the name Joe Exotic, the self-proclaimed Tiger King, who rose from a small zoo owner with big cat dreams to a global internet phenomenon. He became an overnight sensation in 2020 when Tiger King, the Netflix docuseries about his life, hit during the early days of lockdown. Decked out in rhinestone shirts, screaming into the camera, managing a zoo filled with tigers, and locked in an all-out feud against big cat preservationist Carole Baskin, Joe became impossible to ignore. From the start, he was a showman. He bred and raised hundreds of exotic animals, singing country music under the stage name Joe Exotic, and even running for president in 2016, with a platform as wild as his lifestyle. The series captured his flamboyant personality, his Tiger Park's chaos, and the darker side of his ambition, his financial stresses, questionable animal care practices, and increasingly erratic behavior. But behind the spectacle was criminal behavior that landed him in serious trouble. In 2019, Joe was convicted for multiple offenses: a murder-for-hire plot targeting Carole Baskin, extensive violations of federal wildlife laws, like killing tigers and falsifying documents to sell cubs, and abuse of animals under the Endangered Species Act. Federal prosecutors said he offered money to have Baskin killed and that he ran his zoo in ways that hurt the animals he claimed to love. The case made headlines around the world, and in 2020, he was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. In 2021, his sentence was reduced by a year, bringing his total to 21 years behind bars. Even with that reduction, a decade later, he'll still be locked up for a long stretch, at minimum until 2041. As of 2025, Joe Exotic is serving his time at the Federal Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas, a low-security federal prison. Reports confirm he has serious health issues, including prostate cancer, which require ongoing medical care, something that's shaping how his sentence plays out. Despite being behind bars, Joe remains a media magnet. News outlets frequently update his health status, legal appeals, and attempts to obtain either a pardon or early release. And of course, his fans continue to rally behind him, creating petitions, sharing memes, and hoping a future administration might commute his sentence. He's even kept his signature flair. He's done interviews from prison, and there are still t-shirts and online merchandise bearing his face. Joe Exotic's saga is more than just weird reality TV gold. It's a real-life tale of ambition, obsession, and downfall. One moment he was controlling a zoo and feuding with a rival. The next he was found guilty of plotting murder and violating wildlife laws, earning 2 decades in federal prison. Today, the man who once lived in neon get-ups and owned big cats is a 60-something inmate with a long stretch ahead, a cancer diagnosis, and deep questions about legacy, justice, and revenge. So yes, Joe Exotic is still relevant. His story is continuing to unfold behind bars, with fresh legal filings, health updates, and fans refusing to let him fall from the spotlight. He may not be strutting through a zoo anymore, but one way or another, he's still the Tiger King the world can't stop talking about. Let's talk about Elizabeth Holmes, the woman who went from being hailed as the next Steve Jobs to ending up behind bars for one of Silicon Valley's biggest scams. Holmes was the founder and CEO of Theranos, a biotech startup that promised to revolutionize healthcare by running hundreds of blood tests using just a single drop of blood. Investors poured in hundreds of millions of dollars, and at one point the company was valued at $9 billion. Holmes was featured on magazine covers, praised for breaking barriers in tech, and became the youngest self-made female billionaire. But the science behind Theranos was never real. Investigations revealed the company's technology didn't work, and patients were given false or misleading results, a massive risk to public health. In 2022, Holmes was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. She was found guilty of lying to investors about the capabilities and reliability of her blood testing devices. In May 2023, she began serving an 11-year and 3-month sentence in federal prison Camp Bryan, a minimum security facility in Texas. As of 2025, she's still serving her sentence there and is scheduled to be released in 2034, unless she qualifies for early release. Her story has since been adapted into documentaries and streaming shows, keeping her name in the public eye. But make no mistake, her fall from grace is a warning about ambition without accountability, and how fast you can go from the cover of Forbes to a prison cell. Danny Masterson. You probably know Danny Masterson as Stephen Hyde from That 70s Show. The chill, sarcastic guy with the fro and shades who always had a smart remark and a deadpan expression. For years, he was one of the most recognizable faces on TV, part of a cast that helped define early 2000s sitcom culture. After the show ended, he stayed somewhat active in the industry and eventually reunited with Ashton Kutcher on Netflix's The Ranch, which gained a decent following. On the surface, it looked like he was living a pretty successful and steady Hollywood life, beloved by fans, working with old friends, and keeping a low profile off-screen. But in reality, Danny Masterson was facing serious accusations that would eventually destroy his career and land him in prison. The allegations against him weren't new. In fact, they date all the way back to the early 2000s, the same period when That 70s Show was at its peak. Several women came forward and accused Masterson of sexual assault, saying they were either dating him or knew him through the Church of Scientology, where he's been a lifelong and high-profile member. What's even more disturbing is that these women claim the church actively discouraged them from reporting the abuse to the police. Instead, they said they were pressured to stay quiet to protect Masterson and the image of the church. For years, their voices were buried under silence and fear. But that started to change in 2017 when the #MeToo movement gained momentum. More survivors across Hollywood began coming forward, and the conversation around abuse and accountability became louder. Eventually, law enforcement took action, and in 2020, Masterson was charged with forcibly raping 3 women in separate incidents that allegedly took place between 2001 and 2003. This wasn't just about celebrity gossip anymore. It became a high-profile legal battle that drew attention from the public, the media, and the entertainment industry as a whole. The first trial in 2022 ended in a mistrial after the jury couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. But prosecutors didn't give up. In 2023, a second trial was held, and this time the outcome was very different. Danny Masterson was found guilty of raping 2 women. A third count involving another woman didn't lead to a conviction due to lack of sufficient evidence, but the 2 guilty verdicts were enough. The judge sentenced him to 30 years to life in prison, which means he won't even be eligible for parole until he's served at least 3 decades. As of 2025, Danny Masterson is currently incarcerated at North Kern State Prison, a medium security facility in Delano, California. It's a far cry from the Hollywood red carpets and Netflix sets. Life behind bars is strict. Limited visitation, mandatory work programs, and zero luxury. He's now inmate number CDCR #B7052, and unless his appeal works, which is highly unlikely based on the strength of the evidence, this is where he'll be spending the rest of his most productive years. From sitcom stardom to a prison cell, his fall from grace has been dramatic, public, and irreversible. This case also shined a harsh spotlight on the Church of Scientology. All of the victims were former Scientologists, and they claimed the church not only failed to protect them, but actively worked against them when they tried to speak up. According to testimony, victims were told that reporting a fellow Scientologist to the authorities was a serious offense. Some even said they were harassed, followed, and intimidated once they broke their silence. The church, of course, denies any wrongdoing, but the role it allegedly played in protecting Masterson is now under public scrutiny. And it's not going away anytime soon. Masterson's conviction has had a ripple effect in Hollywood. Netflix cut all ties with him after the accusations resurfaced, removing him from The Ranch. Several of his former co-stars have remained silent, while others, like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, faced backlash for writing character letters in support of him during sentencing, something that caused huge public outcry when it was revealed. At the heart of all this is the message that no matter how famous you are, how powerful your connections may be, or how long you've managed to silence people, eventually the truth catches up. You know how power couples from reality TV often seem untouchable? That was Todd and Julie Chrisley, stars of Chrisley Knows Best, the ultra-lavish show that ran for nearly a decade. Todd built an empire in real estate, and Julie charmed us with her domestic flair and down-home humor. They flaunted a $1 million lifestyle, designer wardrobes, mansions, and luxury vacations, right up until the federal indictments hit in 2019. Prosecutors accused them of cooking the books, falsifying bank documents to obtain over $30 million in loans, and hiding more than $500,000 in earned income from the IRS between 2013 and 2016. In June 2022, Todd was found guilty on all counts: bank fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion, earning him a stiff 12-year federal prison sentence. Julie, found equally culpable, was sentenced to 7 years. Both reported to prison in January 2023. Todd sent to FPC Pensacola in Florida, and Julie to FMC Lexington in Kentucky. Despite good behavior credits, shaving a couple of years off their time, they remained incarcerated, missing birthdays, graduations, and family milestones while their daughter Savannah stepped up to hold it all together. Then, in late May 2025, everything flipped. Former President Trump granted them full pardons, sparking a whirlwind return home after 2.5 years inside. Todd tearfully described his first night in prison, confessing he'd cried himself to sleep in anger and confusion. And both he and Julie expressed how incarceration shifted their perspective on family and freedom. Today, freed from custody, they've kept a spotlight on their comeback. They've been spotted in emotional reunions, talked up a new reality-style docuseries, and openly credited divine intervention for their release. Savannah has even hinted at future career plans, like a potential hotel project in Charleston and stepping into prison reform advocacy. Both Todd and Julie credit this chapter with opening their eyes to systemic flaws, from unequal treatment of inmates to struggles with mental wellness behind bars. They're determined to use their platform differently now, pledging to rebuild on a foundation of transparency and accountability. You know, every superhero story has a turning point, and Cain Velasquez's story turned dark. Once a two-time UFC heavyweight champion, fan favorite, and wrestling crossover star, Velasquez went from dominating the octagon to serving a long prison sentence. Let me walk you through how it all fell apart. Cain Velasquez was born in 1982 in Salinas, California, and became a wrestling powerhouse at Arizona State University before entering MMA in 2006. By 2010, life seemed full. He was a devoted husband and father of 2. Then in February 2022, and under monitored release. In August 2024, he pleaded no contest to attempted murder, firearm assault, and related charges. By March 24, 2025, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison plus 4 years of supervised probation. But here's where it gets real. Over 1,283 days of time already served, counting jail and home confinement, were credited, meaning he'll likely serve only about a year in prison. With that heavy credit, he's eligible for parole as early as March 2026, depending on behavior and program participation. Soon after sentencing, Velasquez was sent to Wasco State Prison, a reception center near Bakersfield. That's where new inmates are processed before being moved to longer-term facilities, like San Quentin or Folsom. Later, reporters confirmed he was moved to the Soledad facility, a medium-security prison south of Monterey. Even in court, the judge noted Cain's community support. MMA stars like Dana White and Khabib Nurmagomedov vouched for him, but said he recklessly endangered innocent people and children. That wraps up Cain Velasquez's story. A rise from college wrestling to UFC royalty, a fork in the career, and a fall into prison. It's a powerful reminder that even legends can tumble hard, and that justice is never simple. Alright, let's talk about someone who was once France's national treasure. A man whose face dominated cinema posters from Paris to Hollywood, Gerard Depardieu. If you're into classic European films or older Hollywood dramas, you've definitely heard of him. But in recent years, the legendary actor's name has come up for all the wrong reasons, from critical acclaim to international controversy and now, serious legal trouble. The fall of Gerard Depardieu is one of the most complicated and controversial in showbiz history. Now, before the scandal, let's rewind a bit. Depardieu wasn't just any actor. This guy was a juggernaut in French cinema. He rose to fame in the 1970s and 80s with standout performances in films like Les Valsiuses, The Last Metro, and the Oscar-nominated Cyrano de Bergerac, which even earned him a Best Actor nomination at the Academy Awards. That role, with its emotional depth and theatrical flair, cemented him as an international acting heavyweight. By the 90s, he crossed into Hollywood, starring in films like Green Card with Andie MacDowell and 1492, Conquest of Paradise. The guy wasn't just famous, he was respected. Depardieu has won César Awards, France's version of the Oscars, worked with some of the best directors in the world, and even received honors like the Légion d'honneur, the highest French order of merit. He was more than just a movie star, he was a cultural icon. But over time, that pristine reputation began to crack, and then crumble. In the 2000s and 2010s, Gerard started making headlines for all the wrong reasons. There were outbursts, bizarre behavior during interviews, tax controversies, including moving to Russia to protest France's tax policies, and questionable political friendships. But things took a much darker turn in 2018 when a young French actress accused him of rape and sexual assault. Now, here's where it gets serious. The incident allegedly occurred in 2018 at his Paris home. The actress, who remains unnamed in the media due to French privacy laws, claimed that Depardieu assaulted her during what was supposed to be a professional rehearsal. At first, the case was dropped in 2019 due to lack of evidence. But the case was reopened in 2020, and by early 2021, Gerard Depardieu was formally charged with rape and sexual assault. Unlike other criminal systems where arrest means jail time, in France, a formal indictment doesn't always lead to immediate detention. So no, Depardieu isn't in jail right now. He was released without bail and remains under judicial supervision while the legal process continues. That means he's not locked up, but he's being watched, and the charges are active. He's denied all allegations and says the encounters were consensual, but the case is very much alive. And that's not all. In 2023, a new wave of accusations came forward, this time from multiple women in the French film industry. So where is Gerard Depardieu now? Well, he's not in prison, not yet. As of now, he's still living in France, technically free but under legal scrutiny. So yeah, this isn't just another celebrity with a messy tabloid headline. This is one of France's most iconic actors facing career-ending and life-altering accusations. Whether justice is served through courts or through public opinion, one thing's clear. Gerard Depardieu's story has taken a dark, dramatic turn that no script could have predicted.